Welcome. This is the Desert Blockchain monthly session on Wednesday, July the 28th, 2021. It is 7 p.m. Arizona time and 7 p.m. Pacific time. And Stephanie, if you would go ahead and stop your screen share for the moment. Okay, I am delighted to have everybody join us this evening. We are talking about a program that I'm really excited about. This is actually the second iteration of it. And it's, in my view, it really is it's an indication of the progressive policymakers that we have in the state of Arizona that are interested and see the value of this thing called decentralization, distributed ledger technology, blockchain, and the importance that's emerging from this realm. So tonight, I'm delighted to have three folks from the Arizona Commerce Authority that are involved with this project and program. And we will have about 20 minutes talking about the blockchain and wearables program. We'll open it up for about 5 minutes of questions. And then we'll go into a session or a section talking about just some of the general programs that the Arizona Commerce Authority offers for entrepreneurs, innovators, and startups and so forth in the state of Arizona. And then we'll open it up. We'll have a few words from AJ Gilman, who was part of the session in 2019, who is an attorney. And then we'll just have general questions, and I'll finish it up with some information on some upcoming events and so forth. So I will leave it at that. And I am delighted to introduce the three folks from the Arizona Commerce Authority, which is Stephanie Faltermeier, Nathan Prince, who is the general counsel, and Randy Gustafson, who will be doing the second presentation. So with that, are there any questions, any comments before we go into Stephanie's presentation? All right, very good. Well, Stephanie, go ahead and take it away, screen share, and tell us about the program.
Awesome. Okay, can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about this funding opportunity, as well as the other ACA programs that we have that we think might be of value to your community. I'll go ahead and jump right into it. Oops, sorry, it's lost the mouse. So as Jay mentioned, we will be talking about the Applied Research Center program, also known as the ARC, and I will be going over the funding opportunity we have around blockchain and wearable technology, and we'll be discussing what the qualifications and requirements are for the program and how to apply. And then after that, I'll turn it over to Randy, who will be going over the programs that you see here on the screen. So we're excited to share that state legislature has passed two bills, one in 2019 and then a recent one this year, that appropriates funds for qualifying applied research centers and institutes that are located in this state that specialize in blockchain or wearable technologies. The overall goal of these two bills is to provide funding in increments of up to $250,000 for applied research that supports targeted technologies and products in a way that helps establish Arizona as a leader in these emerging technology sectors. So one thing that I really want to call out is the term applied research. This is a key concept here. This funding will be used for projects that are conducting or plans to conduct research in support of a defined product or service for commercial use. Funds from this program cannot be used to support general or basic research without a specific application in mind. In 2019, under House Bill 2747, there was an appropriation of $2.5 million to be split between blockchain technology, wearables, and for the Institute of Automated Mobility. And then in 2021, Senate Bill 1823 appropriated double the amount for $5 million to be equally split between blockchain technology and wearable technology research. So you'll notice on this screen that there are some small differences between the 2019 and the 2021 bills around the amount of funding and where it can be applied to. But the biggest difference I want to call out right for this screen is the program dates. The 2019 program that was created is set to expire on September 1st, 2022. And that's the date that a recipient of the award would have to spend the funds down by, or they'd have to return it to the Arizona Commerce Authority. Back in 2019, we had a handful of centers come in for the opportunity. However, not all of the funds were used up. From the first version of funding, we still have $500,000 that are available for centers or institutes to apply for, but it's specifically only for blockchain research. And again, the money would need to be spent by September 1st, 2022. The other funds have all been accounted for as far as the wearable technology and for the Institute of Automated Mobility. As for the 2021 program, this will effectively take place on September 29th of this year, and recipients of awards will have until September 1st, 2025 for this funding opportunity. So both programs, for the most part, have the same requirements except for two caveats. One is for matching funds, which I'll be going over in a few slides down the way. And then, of course, the start and end dates that I had just discussed. So who can come in for these funds and how do you get them? In order to get the funding from this program, you must qualify as an applied research center. And for the purposes of this program, an applied research center means any enterprise in our state that has a focus on the application of blockchain or wearable technologies into products and services for an end consumer. To get the funds, there's a total of 6 requirements that will have to be met and demonstrated to us. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into what each of those requirements are. The first requirement is pretty straightforward. You have to be in Arizona to get Arizona money. The ARC must maintain a presence in the state of Arizona and show that you're making expenditures in this state. As far as what is allowable, basically any expenditure that is necessary and prudent in the research and testing process will be permitted. With that being said, any operating, general management, or overhead costs are not considered to be applied research expenditures. So we're not going to pay for a portion of your light bill, your building space, or your administrative assistant. This money needs to be used directly for the research and testing of the approved project. So if there's, if you're interested in this program and you're unsure whether a certain expense would qualify, we encourage you to reach out to us as soon as possible so that we can discuss this on a case-by-case basis so we can walk through how it would work out. And my contact information will be coming up here shortly. So the second requirement is to secure matching funds from sources other than state funds. An ARC will have to provide evidence that they have an obligation of monetary support. So we're not going to count any in-kind or other non-monetary support as a matching fund. This is where we start to see some program differences between the 2019 funding and the upcoming 2021 funding. So for the 2019 program, it was required that any applicant who was requesting funding for the blockchain or wearable project had to secure $250,000 in matching funds, no matter what they were requesting from the ACA. So for example, if someone submitted an application for an increment of $100,000, well, they were required to show us that they had $250,000 in matching funds, even though they were only asking for $100,000 from us. So that was for the 2019 program. For the 2021 program, this has changed to a one-to-one match, meaning you have to secure matching funds that amount to what you're requesting from our program. So going back to that 100,000 example, if you're requesting that much from us, then you need to show that you also have that $100,000. AJ Gilman made a comment prior to this presentation that this this new change might be beneficial for some of these smaller companies that want to come in for funding, because now it's the one-to-one match rather than, you know, trying to hit something higher. All right. So the third requirement is why this program exists. You must conduct applied research in blockchain or wearables. And for our program purposes, blockchain refers generally to a decentralized system where a digital public ledger records online transactions. Wearables generally refers to any manufactured element or system that's intended to attach or be connected with the human body that defends, enhances, or supplements the human body's natural abilities, and something that generates environmental or biological data relative to the human body. So I want to repeat myself. That this research, it must be applied research, meaning that the research is working towards creating a practical solution. It does not support basic or exploratory research without a specific application in mind. Okay. The fourth requirement is having a principal investigator that leads the research efforts, and they have to have substantive, rigorous academic credentials and a history of intellectual contribution to the targeted technology. This person should be an individual in an executive or leadership role who directs the research, and you'll have to demonstrate to the ACA that they have been doing work in the pursued technology, that they've made contributions, and that they're experienced in the field. So a key component and requirement of this program is collaboration. Those who are applying for this program have to collaborate with universities, nonprofit business associations, health science research centers, institutes, or other technology businesses that do their business here in Arizona. When we speak about collaboration, we're not just referring to informal collaboration. If you want this funding, you cannot go into it solo. We're aiming to bring together the different realms in terms of academic and enterprise. So we want to make sure that businesses are leveraging resources, with academics and kind of building together to come towards this commercialized product. I want to note that when it comes to the treatment of intellectual property, the ACA is totally hands-off in this aspect. Any IP that comes out of this has to be governed between the applicant and its collaborative partners. It will be your property. The ACA's role is really just supplementing your applied research with funds to get you to work towards commercialization. All right. The final eligibility requirement is that the research you're doing has to be in support of a defined product or service for commercial use. You cannot use the funds for an academic purpose. You have to be developing something and it has to be applied research. So those are the 6 requirements to be eligible for this program. You have to be here in Arizona spending your money here towards blockchain and wearable applied research. You have to secure matching funds and work with a principal investigator who's leading the research. You got to provide evidence of your collaboration, and you have to be working towards a defined product or service. So if you meet these, you are ready to apply for the Applied Research Center program. So there's 2 forms that have to be completed. The first form is what we call the notification form, and it's asking for general information, but it's also requesting that you submit attachments that kind of detail all of those 6 requirements that I had just went over. And then you also have to submit a W-9 vendor form. This is a form that provides us with all of your taxpayer information or your company's information so that if you do receive funding, we can easily send the funds your way. For this program, the funds are distributed within 30 days after a substantially complete notification form. Substantially complete means that the applicant meets all eligibility requirements and all required documents are submitted with no pending items or questions. As I mentioned earlier, for the 2019 program, we still have $500,000 available for blockchain that we need to use by September 1st, 2022. Right now, we have one interested party that's working towards pulling together all of the requirements. But I want to note that this program operates on a first come, first served basis. So if there's an individual or a company that's ready to go and that can spend this money by September 1st, 2022, they would take priority, and we would work with the other potential applicants to get them into the next round of 2021 funds that we'll have available later in September. So as for the 2021 program, right now we're still in the process of finalizing the program rules and guidelines, and these should be posted for public comment in the coming month. And it's basically going to detail everything we discussed here today. And it's also going to note when the official application round will start. Right now we're thinking, and this is tentative, that it'll open up September 29th and we'll keep it open for a month. And then we have 30 days from then to distribute the funds for those who qualify. So we're thinking by November 30th, people can start to receive those funds. But basically, we're going to have this application window for a month that everyone can come in and apply for. And those applicants will be deemed as being received on the same day. And money will be given out based off of that applicant pool. And for any funds that are remaining after that window, anyone who comes in after that will go to that on a first come, first served basis. So once you get your funding, after you met all eligibility requirements, on an annual basis, you'll be required to submit an annual report to our office that will detail the performance of your applied research, and it'll have to detail the expenditures that you had over the past year. We'll ask for a list of expenditures, both for what the ACA provided in funding, as well as how the matching funds were spent for the project. You will have to continue to submit this annual report until you either use up all of your award money or until the program termination date, whichever occurs sooner. So as you can see on the screen, the 2019 program, you'd have to report up through September 2022. If you don't use those funds, you have to return them. And then 2021 program funding extends out to 2025. So yeah, that is basically the program in a nutshell. If you're interested in being a part of our email list for program announcements, or if you'd like me to send you a notification form or the current program rules and guidelines, I'm happy to do so. You can send me an email at appliedresearch@azcommerce.com, or you can give me a call as well if you have any general questions. I can open it up for questions now before turning it over to Randy.
That would be great, Stephanie. Thank you. Very
I
good.
have a question for you. When you go through your criteria to see if they meet all 6 criteria, what kind of time frame are you looking at must be up and running in order to qualify as criteria?
Are you referring?
Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind stopping your screen share so we can see everyone, that would be great. Thank you.
So what you said, what is the time frame to be up and running? Are you referring to your specific center doing the work?
Well, if you have the 6 criteria, your operation must be up and running for this criteria to be met. How long must they be up and running to meet the criteria specifications?
We don't really have guidance for that piece. What is the time running? Are you referring to your specific center?
Would everyone mute, please, unless you're talking?
Well, not necessarily. Just one. Is this like for a startup? If they just start last month and they're meeting this criteria, or must they be in operation for a year, half year?
There aren't any guidelines around that. It's something that we'll definitely look at on a case-by-case basis. And if there's any questions, we will reach back out to ask more about what the operations are of that entity.
I would like to make a comment on the point that Willie's bringing up, because I've looked at the program and spoken with some folks. it almost seems to me like this requires forming a new entity so that you can, clearly define who is participating, who owns what, how are the expenditures being made and from what entity and so forth. So if I were to answer your question, Willie, and I'm not an authority on this, but I would say that, the best thing to do would be to form a new entity, like immediately, probably as you're applying, assuming that you're going to, that you can get the matching funds. That would be my recommendation. But again, I'm not an expert in this.
One more thing here, Jake, when this is over, can you maybe get up and send out a definition of the wearables that she mentioned? It was very, very broad and included a lot of things, and it'd be nice to probably see all that again.
Yeah, I'm happy to give you my email address, and I can directly send you the program rules and guidelines that currently sit out there. It does define the wearables piece in our definitions. If it's okay with you, I'm going to throw up my screen one more time, just so if people want to write down my phone number and my email.
I did add your contact info and Lane's contact info to the chat.
Oh,
everybody
perfect.
should have it now.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, but that is not showing yet in the live stream, but we will definitely have that. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask a question, just to
Go ahead,
maybe
Aca.
clarify something I think is pretty good and important? So with regard to the principal investigator requirement, which by my understanding is a pretty rigorous standard to be considered a principal investigator, that doesn't necessarily have to be someone who is in-house in your organization. If you have a partnership, perhaps with one of these institutions or research centers, they could have someone who is leading research with you and is principal investigator, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, thought I'd bring that up.
And I have a question about that as well. If the principal investigators domiciled outside of the state of Arizona, would that work?
Nate, we might need to look into this further. Because if we're it depends, right? We need to, all of these funds need to be used here in Arizona. So if we'd have to look into it.
Okay.
We'd have to double check the definition of principal investigator. I do have the rules up right now. And for Willie, to answer your question, that's the definition of wearables. If you're interested, and we'll also provide a link to the rules and guidelines. But principal investigator just says means an individual in an executive or leadership role who directs research at the Applied Research Center. We'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis, but I imagine it's possible that person could be outside of the state at a time, but we would just have to make sure that, looking at everything, that it does fit within the rules.
Okay.
And we're happy. We've had applicants that are in the process, and I'm sure also that have completed it, that they'll have questions like this, and we'll work to, find an answer. And we want it to work for you. We don't want to say, no, this is impossible. We want to help you figure out a way to make it work.
Okay. And that totally makes. Go ahead.
Sorry. I wrote down that question. I have your email, so we'll look into it and get your response that you could share out with the community.
Yeah. And we have some questions from the live stream. Wade Tate is saying, this is both exciting and frustrating. As a small startup working on a blockchain application here in Phoenix, I feel we would be the exact target audience for this program, but I can't really see meeting the requirements, especially around collaboration academics. And then next part is, I think that unused 500K probably speaks to this program not being tailored too well to a startup that is actually out there building. And, I'd like to say, I'd like to address this a little bit. I think, first of all, Wade, I think you're bringing up some excellent points. And I think part of what's surfacing here in the questions is that, you know, this is a fairly new program, and there is room to basically move forward based upon the intent of the program versus, you know, defined whatever's in place in terms of the rules and regulations and all that sort of thing. So as a startup, and I can definitely sympathize with this, you know, it is hard to create the collaborative interest and so forth. What I would recommend you do is basically post your interest in the comments section of this meetup, and, you know, let people know that you're interested in participating in this. Let me know, and I'll see what we can do to announce your interest and others that are interested in this, and form some collaborative groups that might be able to apply for this. And part of this, the intention of this session itself, is to have people gather together, express their questions, express their interests, and basically have a community forum where hopefully participants can come together and, you know, share their talents, share their interests, and what they respectively bring to the table. Does that make sense? So yeah, Desert Blockchain. Let's consider that your sort of blockchain and wearables town square at this point. Okay.
Community sounds awesome, where you guys can, you know, talk about, I have this and we need this. How can we collaborate to get to some sort of solution?
Yeah, and we can have more sessions on this. We can have some workshops on it and so forth. And you know, we do have a facility, Desert Blockchain Camp, where we can have some meetings in person, and you know, health requirements permitted. So, so anyway, let's see. Any other questions before we move on to Randy's portion? And Randy, you posted something in the chat.
It was just to you, Jay. Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Just housekeeping, no big deal.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I'm wearing multiple hats at the same time here.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can definitely do that. So, Randy, I'll turn it over to you. Anything you'd like to say to kind of introduce yourself that I didn't cover, or talk about your role at the ACA? And
yes, let me go ahead and share the screen here. Make sure it comes up. And do we have it?
we do.
Fantastic. And everyone hears me okay. All right. Well, great. Thank you very much, Jay. Appreciate it. And it is an honor to be back. This is I had the great pleasure of meeting with your group 2 years ago, and very glad to be back, especially with my colleagues who know way more about the Applied Research Center stuff than I do. My name is Randy Gustafson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Corporate Venture Development. However, I kind of work on our innovation team. I've been with the ACA for 9 years, so I've been involved with many of the programs that I'm going to talk with you about. But my title, I'll get to that as well. But as a team, we work with educating all kinds of startups, stakeholders, investors, especially from out of state, about all of the resources we have here in Arizona. So as Stephanie pointed out, and as it came up relative to applied research grants, you know, probably most of the kinds of entities that would apply for that would tend to be startup companies. And so because of that, in our vast repertoire of resources that we have that go beyond that grant, we thought it made sense for us to kind of review those even at a top line level. I'll definitely go over some more in a little bit more detail because of their popularity here within the state of Arizona. But let me go ahead and get to it. So, all right. There we go. For some reason, it wasn't changing. Okay, so the overview is that the Arizona Commerce Authority, we play a very critical role in driving innovation and entrepreneurship across the entire state of Arizona. We do wear that state hat, and we will talk to basically any resource that's within Arizona or outside of it if they're interested in potentially doing business or coming to Arizona. And so we have a variety of programs and things that we do, and that's what I'm going to be spending time going over, mostly for technology types of startup companies, and I'll give you some definitions around that. However, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've also come through where in that crisis, we found that small businesses were hurting as much as anyone, your classic small businesses, bricks and mortars and whatnot. And we put together some programs and really look at the same kinds of concepts, partnerships, and best practices for small businesses, as well as our tech startups. So I will go over some of that as well. What we have essentially is that all of our programming and what our team does, and really the ACA collectively, is for the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We're basically the connective tissue kind of between all the resources, what we call here in this graphic, the social fabric. I sometimes frankly boil it down after 9 years. I go, hey, we're sometimes kind of the schmucks in the middle that help everyone come together with the right resources to make magic happen and benefit the economy of the state of Arizona. So if you kind of look at the ACA and our programs as the red, the blue circles, don't worry if you can't read them, are essentially represent all of the startup companies. And then all of the other stakeholder resources out there are throughout the ecosystem. That includes all the universities, all the incubators and accelerators, all the association groups. Desert Blockchain is one of those, Meetup is one of those groups, all the investors, mentors, coaches. And so our programs tend to bring everything together for the benefit of entrepreneurs, founders, small business owners, investors, and even more so recently, even job seekers. So there's two main elements of our team, if you will, and innovation is where I'm going to spend most of the focus here. And what our innovation programs are, from your perspective, is they are to accelerate the growth of Arizona technology startups. And so we broadly classify, and you've seen this from many other resources, of where's kind of the life cycle of where companies are. But we kind of look at it, it's start, grow, and scale. You can see some of the definitions down there. Most of the companies who we work with in our programs tend to be in the start to grow range. I would say the average company is probably 4 to 7 employees. Some of our broad requirements, there are some exceptions, but the vast majority of companies that work in the programs I'm about to tell you fit the following criteria. They are legally formed, for profit. They require usually at least 2 employees working on the business full time. We get sweat equity, so they do not have to be paid employees, but as long as those people are putting in at least 35 or more hours a week toward the core of the business, not purely an administrative role, then we count that. In general, most of the startups who would apply to our programs have less than 30 employees. And the other key aspect of them is that these companies have to have novel proprietary technology. Now, you may not own a patent, or you may not want to strategically, especially if you're a startup company, but in general, it has to be proprietary in nature. And I always tell people, think, could or should you have a patent? And those are our main basic requirements of the kind of startups that we're generally working with. So our biggest, most well-known program, and we've been running it for 10 years now, is called the Arizona Innovation Challenge. It's one of the largest business plan competitions in the nation, particularly relative to the amount of money awarded. For many years, we ran it twice a year, but because we have so much and varied different kinds of programming, we now run it once a year. And we award usually $1.5 million each time we run the competition. So they are grants. We're not allowed to take equity by statute. So they are grant funds, non-dilutive, which is great for startups. And it's to either commercialize or to scale the startups' technologies. And the companies who win the Innovation Challenge do it through our Venture Ready Accelerator, which I'll talk more about shortly. But the Innovation Challenge takes about 4 months. It's a 3-phase process. It's mostly done online. It's extremely competitive. We can get 100 to 200 applications each time we run it. And as long as they meet the eligibility criteria that I pretty much just talked about, we crowdsource our judges. So we have a cadre of over 100 judges. They include serial entrepreneurs, major investors, some large executives that are industry experts, stakeholders who work significantly with technology startups. And it's basically a 2-page application that asks very specific questions along a classic business plan. Plus, there is a P&L form that you fill out with your forecasted projections out to as many as 5 years. And those are uploaded into an online system. We generally assign 4 to 6, sometimes 7 judges per company. They're all anonymized, and they go through and they do a very specific scoring judging process. And when we go to the semifinals, we look at all the scores from 1 to 150 companies, whatever it is, and we generally take the top 25. There's a select group of judges that are part of the process. They can have conversations based on any info or intel that they have, but in generally they take the top 25. They are in the semifinalist round. Those semifinalists then resubmit their info plus a couple of other extra items, and then they're judged. And from there, that's all done online. Then we pick the top 15 and they present to us, and it's Shark Tank on steroids. We have been doing that remote and virtually the last couple of times, but otherwise we do it in person. And so that is the entire process. And we name 10 companies as the awardees, each which is awarded $150,000 of non-dilutive funding. So that's where the 1.5 million comes from. Now, by total coincidence, we just opened up this year's Innovation Challenge. So you can go to our website, all the details are there. You can download those applications I talked about, read more detail about the eligibility, the process, all kinds of stuff. And that opened on Monday. And that submission window is open through August 27th. So it's open a good solid month or so. We are also running information seminars, and those can be signed up for online. We ran one already. Our next one is this Friday at noon, and then there's 2 more in the coming weeks. So look for more details there. Some of the kind of impact stuff with just how big the Innovation Challenge is. We've run 16 rounds, over 2,300 applications from almost 1,400 unique startups. We essentially have the biggest database of startups in Arizona. And of those winning companies or those awardee companies, we have a portfolio of 110. The value or market cap of those companies alone is over 1.3 billion. It's created well over 600 full-time jobs at a high average salary. And there are hundreds of more 1099 and part-time jobs been created as well. You can see the other figures there, but the one that we're most proud of is all of those companies just since winning the competition have raised over $700 million since their award. And we keep track of them through reporting and everything. So it's actually a pretty enviable portfolio. If we could take equity, we would rival most VCs, if not exceed them. So it's been kind of a cool process, and it's a way for startups to kind of get on our radar screen for all of our programming. The Innovation Challenge is kind of the foundation. Now, for the companies who actually win the Innovation Challenge, they then have to sign a legal agreement with us, holds them to us for 5 years, including that they are going to maintain operations in Arizona. There is reporting, but the most important thing is they go through our Venture Ready Accelerator, which is a repetitive process, takes 9 to 12 months to execute. You are assigned an entrepreneur in residence who's kind of your Sherpa and coach for that entire time. And we wrap all kinds of workshops, all kinds of resources around you, and you really become a client company. And all of that normally can occur within the first year, and then it's just subsequent reporting for the next. But what happens is as you successfully go through that Venture Ready Accelerator program of repetitive pitching and adhering to the rules and passing the panels and stuff like that, that unlocks that $150,000 as you go. And you are required to complete the entire program and graduate to get the full 150. But it's a very cool program. We've actually been admitted to the GAN network. We're the only accelerator in Arizona that's been admitted to the GAN network, which is a pretty prestigious association of accelerators around the world. So the way we manage a lot of this is through the Arizona Innovation Network. You can see some of the stuff there, the all-in-one tools. Some of this is still being partnered or piloted, I should say. But the competition I described, where we run that on the platform. We also are developing another program I'll get to next. But the idea is that eventually startups around Arizona will be able to sign up. They can take different curriculum, meet with different types of mentors, all online. We'll have all kinds of reporting. Ideally, it will be expanded into even an investor deal flow type of a thing. And a lot of that is under development, but it's our core baseline of what we're creating. One of our programs that we have been running, we're running the second version of it right now, is called the Aca Virtual Accelerator. So we still run that. We curate it pretty carefully, but it's generally going to be for high-tech startup companies that probably aren't good enough and have not won the Innovation Challenge. But it's a 12-week virtual program. It's hosted on that network, but you're provided a whole group of mentors and coaches to help you. There's a lot of guidance, a lot of resources wrapped around. We did one pilot program with 11 companies and 14 coaches, and we've more than doubled that amount in the current cohort. And the idea is, how do we continue to scale that further? Now, another program that we have that is very popular, and actually Nathan and Stephanie's team are the ones who really run this, but I'm intimately involved, and many of you may have heard this announced, is the Angel Tax Credit Program. So this is actually a tool for investors in Arizona who are accredited investors and have an Arizona tax liability by however they arrive at that through whatever legal structure. And the idea is that if a startup company meets essentially the requirements that I already went over to be a tech startup, then if an investor writes them a check of at least $25,000, then that investor can take 30 or 35% of that investment over a 3-year period right to the bottom line. It's a direct first come, first served tax credit at $2.5 million a year. It does tend to go pretty quickly. It's gone as fast as 7 weeks before, but more traditionally, it's been probably closer to 4 to 7 months that it takes. And it's been a really big tool, especially for the formal investor groups around the state of Arizona. So again, Stephanie's team actually certifies the companies. I help with that because we often know them through the other programming. But then the investors also apply to Stephanie's team, and they have to turn in their appropriate paperwork to take advantage of that 30 or 35% credit. For many of the companies, it's a 30% tax credit, 10% a year for 3 years. But if you're located in a rural location or you're a biomedical related company, then it's 35%. Most of the investors in Arizona, especially if they belong to our angel or venture capital groups, will ask you automatically if you approach them, are you involved with the tax credit program? If not, go get certified. You do have to get recertified every year, but in general, it's a relatively easy process to do, just takes a few weeks. And once you have that certification, everyone's happy, and they literally feel more like writing you checks than they otherwise would. We're very lucky that the legislature just extended it. It's one of the last signatures that Governor Ducey made on the budget this year, was to extend that program through 2031. Some other programs, I'm not going to go through all the detail, but corporate venture development, that's my main day job. Simply, I reach out to big corporations in and out of Arizona and figure out how to get them more involved in the startup community of Arizona on behalf of the startups. We also, many of you may know that we launched in Arizona. We actually got worldwide recognition for it, the FinTech Sandbox. We were the first state in the country to do it. Well, we also have a property tech sandbox as well. And just so happens, yours truly is the program manager for that. I work very closely with Nathan, startups, our government legislative affairs, but essentially, if a property kind of technology startup can demonstrate a regulatory hurdle that exists that would otherwise prevent them from being able to test their technology, the sandbox literally gives them a space to play in to try and do that. So that's the prop tech sandbox. Okay, and I'm almost done. Just a little bit about small business because it's become such a big deal, particularly with COVID. So we have a lot of different ways. We've always addressed small businesses, but we mostly did through this first bullet point through the small business checklist program. The biggest traffic on our entire ACA website is small companies coming in and going, hey, what do I need to do to become a hairstylist in the state of Arizona? Do I need a license or not? What do I need if I want to start up the next new restaurant, whatever it is? And so we have that program, but we're enhancing it. But in the last year, we've also developed a lot of support for rural, including working with the small business development centers, which are usually associated with the community colleges throughout the states. We work very closely with them with grants, workshops, and other things. We also have a small business academy. I'll talk about that a little bit more. And also our person who runs the small business services team, the position was actually created by the legislature in 2018 to be the small business ombudsman. So it's kind of a catch-all funnel for all things small business. Probably one of the most important things that we've been doing with small business due to COVID is we started what's called our Small Business Boot Camp and Resource Collective. And what we've done is we've gone to major partners throughout the state. We partnered with them and we provide content to help small companies, which can include technology startups, on how to get through the pandemic. So what it's morphed to is not only helping people on the pandemic kind of topics, such as the PPP program and the EIDL loans, all of that came from the SBA and the feds. Those are very well attended sessions for any company who's going for paycheck protection program stuff. However, we've been running it so long, we also use it to just talk about, hey, what is the best way of how you hire within your organization? What is the best way to be digital marketing and get yourself on page 1 of Google? The topics are all over the place, but we started off running it daily for about a month and a half. Then we lowered it to about 3 times a week. Now we've been going Tuesdays and Thursdays each week. And every now and then we do a special session depending on the need and what we hear back from the crowd. This is a short list of our partners. We actually have 126 total partners, and this is just a sample of them. And here's some of the impacts. These are only a couple of sessions old, so they're pretty close, but we've now been running it for well over a year, over 168 actual presentations, 258 presenters, over 13,000 attendees. And the good news is all of these sessions are archived on our website. So even if you're going, man, I wish I heard about this earlier, you can go all the way back to week 1 and start watching them fully. They were all recorded except with an exception of 1 or 2 specific ones that involved the corporation. And like I said, 126 total partners. So it's really become something that has really helped us scale, helping small businesses. But when I look at the attendee list, I see the technology startups in this program as well. The last thing I'll talk about is simply the Small Business Digital Academy. It's just like that virtual accelerator for the high-tech companies I talked about, only it's a 6-week program for more bricks and mortar kinds of small businesses. We're running our 3rd cohort of that as we speak right now. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And there's my contact information, but Nathan's already put it in the chat. So definitely open to any questions or anything.
I will ask the first question then. With regard to the prop tech sandbox, does that specifically deal with allowing you to circumvent requirements to operate, or does it let you play with new technologies that allow you to circumvent existing requirements. Good example of this being the recording requirement with the county recorder for deeds, for example.
That I don't know. We have to research that specifically when you ask that specific of a question. But in general, it's the second of what you said. It's definitely designed to test new technologies that are out there. And what has to happen, and this, not many companies have been able to do this, you have to know your business well enough to know what the regulation is that stands in your way. And then we often will talk to you about it ahead of time and try and run interference with our team, including getting a hold of the right state agency to see, to start to plant seeds and to see if what the specific issue is. But the company has to identify. I've talked to so many companies that go, well, can you research it for me? I go, we don't have the time to go through and do your research for you as to what you can and can't do. We're not geared that way. So you have to come up with it. And what we found is that even a company that wasn't able to find an exact regulatory hurdle, but in the exploration of everything they've taken to go through it, we helped them grease the skids so much into the Arizona Department of Housing that it streamlined their ability to do their business anyways. And so even though they technically weren't in the sandbox, we worked with them so carefully because our job at the end of the day is to help companies with new technologies grow. Now, there's a couple of caveats to that, AJ, only because you asked the question, and I know you to give you a little bit more of a thorough answer. What it often does not allow is if you have a technology that's specifically designed to eliminate like real estate agents. So that in general, you're not allowed to do. And that's a political thing that goes back to the way it was approved. And then also it's not for normal real estate transactions. It's not for, hey, can I use the sandbox so I can do a standard commercial real estate deal that's going to be real wonky to build an 80-story high rise in Gilbert? You know, it's not for that kind of level. It is to foster brand new technology that hopefully no one else is doing, that you feel is proprietary, but because of some kind of regulation you've identified, it's like, damn, for me to get that approval, it's going to take me more months and months and months to get there. Whereas if we can get you approved in the sandbox, and it's a very one case-by-case basis, then we can go, okay, we can waive that requirement for you. We'll keep it in mind. We'll see how the tech goes. There's no guarantee that that results in the removal of the regulation, but the goal is that if we can, we will. And that fits Governor Ducey's direct thing, which you've heard a million times, like we've reduced over 2,000 regulations, for example. So that's the overall intent. I know that's a thorough answer, but it is some of the questions that I get whenever I talk to companies who are just trying to figure out what it's about.
Well, Randy and AJ, that's a perfect opportunity for me to announce our next monthly session, which will be on real estate and blockchain. And that will be August the 25th at 7 p.m. So we will definitely, well, we might knock on your door, Randy, and say, hey, we've got some ideas here. We would like to see if they fit in the prop tech sandbox. So
no, absolutely. And educating companies on that, that's part of my job. I see AJ already getting his hands ready to go there. So
yeah, I was about to say, Jay, I was going to announce that. Stole my thunder.
Yeah, AJ's going to be part of that, and Ian Staley of Fabri, which is a global real estate consortium, will be part of it as well, and maybe a few other folks. So, yeah, any other questions? I'm looking for questions in the live stream. Any other questions?
If anybody out there knows anybody that would like to do some tokenizing of real estate projects as a test run, I have lots of lots and land. Hey, I can use one of those. Be happy to throw in your way for a test product.
Ooh,
Very good.
take you up on that.
All right. Well, there's all sorts of opportunities to collaborate on these things for sure. So, any other questions, comments? Nathan, anything you would like to add at this point?
Nothing other than I look forward to working with you if you guys put in an application for these programs. So far, I've worked with Randy and I work very closely with Stephanie. Both great resources, and again, the ACA is really designed to help businesses. So reach out to us, and more than happy to talk to you and work with you.
Very cool. All right. Well, the presentation, there have been links to the presentations, and they will be publicly available tomorrow morning. And feel free to contact me, Stephanie, Nathan, Brandy. AJ will get your contact information in there. And AJ will be part of our session on August 25th as well on real estate and blockchain. So any other, Ian is on with us on live stream, and he's saying looking forward to next weekend. And he's interested in what Willie is bringing up. So all sorts of collaboration going on here. So
just a couple closing words, if that's
sure.
all right.
Go ahead, AJ.
So we had a couple people pipe up earlier about how this seems to be a little difficult for smaller startups to the ARC funding. And I had the great pleasure of talking about the original 2019 grant. And I will say, compared to that, this is infinitely better in multiple ways. Because if you look at the 6 requirements that both of them have in common, 2 of them were fundamentally barriers to smaller companies and also research-oriented companies and a few other groups to getting these funds. And they were the matching funds requirement and the principal investigator requirement. So the matching funds requirement has been remedied tremendously in this second iteration, in that the 2019 bill required you to have $250,000 of funds, regardless of what you were actually asking for, which for a small company, that's very, very difficult. But if you're looking to develop something a little smaller, actually matching one-to-one is a much more doable thing. As far as the collaboration requirement with a principal investigator, and I could also link this into the law thing, which I came here to talk about a bit. That can be pretty daunting, having someone who can, have those credentials and work with you. But there are a lot of groups in town who are willing to work with small companies who are really amazing resources. And there are also some amazing legal resources, because would you believe it, people don't like lawyers because they cost some money sometimes.
What?
I would know.
What are you saying, AJ?
But so to all the small businesses and startups and entrepreneurs out there who are looking for some places where you could look for a principal investigator and also maybe some legal help, I would direct you to the ASU Applied Blockchain Research Lab. If you want a principal investigator, they have some really brilliant people over there, some amazing projects. It's really, really cool what they're doing. Additionally, the Buse Gilbert Center for Law, Science, and Innovation at ASU Law School, alma mater represent. Amazing program. We have Professor Marchant on the call, Gary Marchant, who heads that center, and a lot of innovation going on there. And one more resource that I just want to bring up is the Innovation Advancement Clinic, which, if you are a small business and you just need some basic legal help getting things formed and set up, you want a little advice, you could apply to get help there, and you will be given a group of students being overseen by a real attorney, and they will work for you for a semester and get you all set up. I actually did that as my clinic when I was in law school. It was a great experience for me. And I know the people who we worked with got off the ground with that help, and it did not cost them very much. I recall it was maybe a couple $100s, not much more.
I actually went through that program, AJ. I'm glad you bring it up. And it was awesome. And it was, I think I paid $350 for a semester's worth of legal help. And it was really, really great. So thank you.
I also participated in that clinic. It was great. But there's also business school students as well that are involved in the clinic. So it's more than just the legal help.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we're almost out of time. I would like to wrap it up with a couple of announcements on some things. So I'm going to screen share here, and and we'll close it out. Let's see. Sorry about this. Okay, so first of all, this Saturday at Desert Blockchain Camp, we're going to have a workshop, this third or fourth workshop, where you will be able to remote control live a gaming facility using Telegram, Stellar, Node-RED, and Raspberry Pis. And Shane Sandler will be running that. That'll start at 11 a.m. and we'll be live streaming it, as well as offering Zoom connections for citizens. And that's it's a lot of fun. You can launch tennis balls, you can control a water gun, and all kinds of things. The other thing that we talked about, and this is on Meetup, and I just set this up, is on August 25th, we'll be having our monthly session on real estate and blockchain. We already kind of talked about that with the PropTech Sandbox and some of these other possibilities, and you can sign up for that, RSVP for that now. And then the last thing is kind of a charitable item, if it will come up. Okay, so this is a local company called Acronis, and they are doing a lot with veterans, and they have a charity golf event, if this will come up, in September, I believe. Let's see, yeah, September 10th. And you can, if you look at the bi-weekly update, which is in our Twitter feed and so forth, you can go to the link for that. So that is basically everything that I have. I think we're right on time for wrapping things up. Thank you so much for your participation. And I acknowledge everybody, including the policymakers, to foster creating innovation and collaboration for startups and creating something new. So thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank
Hi,
you,
everyone.
Jay.
Speakers.